Yikes. All right, let's welcome to Off the Bench here on a Monday. It's gonna be a fun show. It's gonna be a lot of complaining. I don't know if you guys don't like complaining, but there's gonna be a lot of things said about this Cincinnati Bengals team after what you could say is arguably the most embarrassing loss in a season chock full of them. What you could say is arguably the most embarrassing loss in a head coaching career that is chock full of them. We got an hour of content here on Off the Bench. It'll be just me and Stone. Stone Shield show coming up here at 11. Stone was in the stadium yesterday. Stone, how was your weekend? Before we get into, let's get some positive energy in the room before we start tearing it all down. Hopefully you had a good weekend.
Yeah, I did. It was a good weekend. No complaints. Was a good vibe there at the game for the pregame, and then for much of the, first 3 quarters of the game, and then reality started to sink in a little bit there in the fourth quarter, and next thing you know, you're giving up basically 40 points to the Jets, and all the momentum you created on Thursday night against the Steelers, it just disappears on you. We warned you on the show, as great as last Thursday night was, it would probably be equally or even worse on the flip side if they lose this game, and then here you are losing to the winless Jets, and you're searching for answers once again. Lots to unpack with this game. Lots I know you got to get off your chest. Lots I got to get off my chest. But defensively, who would have thought that you'd be worse than last year?
Yeah, it seemed impossible. The words that describe the defense last year was historically bad, was putrid. Was you could not imagine how a defense could be worse with the season that the Bengals offensively had, to where Joe Burrow put up true MVP numbers and actually was robbed of a most valuable player award because of how bad the defense played, because of how the Jamar Chase had a triple crown last year and all the points the Bengals put up, and they still didn't make the playoffs. Like, that's how bad the defense was, and here we are a year later, and somehow it's worse. Didn't seem possible, but that's where we are. And where we are was we came into yesterday, the Bengals did, with a chance, despite 4 consecutive embarrassing losses. The worst loss in franchise history against the Minnesota Vikings, a loss in front of a national audience on Monday Night Football against a Denver Broncos team where the offense and the defense equally matched each other and how bad it looked. A loss against the Detroit Lions, and though a surprising fourth quarter comeback made it a little interesting, the game was never, ever even close to being competitive. And the same thing could be said about the Green Bay Packers. So after 4 consecutive embarrassing losses, you figured the worst was behind us, and here we are. The Bengals still had a chance to go into yesterday playing the worst team in football, a team that was winless. Aaron Glenn, who was coming in, I think, with the second longest winless streak to start a head coaching career, only losing to Zach Taylor, our very own Zach Taylor in that department. But a team that was in complete disarray. People talked about Aaron Glenn, and they said he looked completely over his head. You could not even imagine the coaching mistakes he was making. The owner of the team came in and was bashing the quarterback that they signed for $20 million a year, and that guy wouldn't have started. So, yeah, this Jets team was coming in without their star wide receiver, Garrett Wilson, their number 2, Josh Reynolds, their star cornerback, Sauce Gardner, and really they were playing with a backup quarterback because, like I said, Justin Fields would not have started if Tyrod Taylor could take the ball. We're at home coming off the highest point of the season where you beat your biggest foe in the Pittsburgh Steelers in front of a national audience. You have Joe Flacco, the vibes are high, and you just have a chance to get back to 4-4. And if you would have won, you'd be a half game out of first place in the division, despite everything that happened over that 4-game stretch. And what do? You give up 39 points to, I don't think I'm being overly harsh here, give up 39 points to the worst offense in the league, to the worst team in the league. You scored 38 and it wasn't enough. You had 5 separate double-digit leads in that game, 2 in the fourth quarter alone. And it wasn't good enough to get it done. It wasn't good enough to get this team back to 4-4. And yeah, it feels like a gut punch. Yeah, it feels miserable. And most Bengals fans just sat around yesterday wondering how it all happened. Even though the little birdie in the back of their brain was telling them the whole time, this isn't going to go well, is it? This isn't going right. You're sitting there. Stone said he was in the stadium, and it felt like they were bushwhacked to where no one in the stadium saw it. But deep down, you knew it was coming the whole time. This is the most embarrassing loss in the Zach Taylor era, in my Cincinnati Bengals era. And it has to do with just how putrid that Jets team is. Justin Fields did not play well. He didn't play well. And they put up 500 yards of offense. There was one guy. We mentioned Garrett Wilson, an all-pro level wide receiver, gone. Their number 2, Josh Reynolds, gone. Can't play. The one thing they knew is, they might be able to run the ball a little bit, so we knew that kind of coming in. But 250 yards? Breece Hall was their only threat, and we still couldn't stop him. Isaiah Davis? Is that their backup running back? Guy you never heard of before? 50-yard rush to keep them in the game. And after the game, Zach had a comment, and we were talking about this off air, me and Stone were, about Zach's comment saying this was a humbling loss. And there was a couple players that kind of echoed that sentiment. This was a humbling loss. And to that, I simply asked the question, what was humbling about it? Did you think you were there? Did you think you made it? Do you think you were good? Do you think that you were good enough? That this defense was finally on the up and up? Because I'll tell you right now, this defense has now played seven consecutive games where they've given up 27 plus points. 27. Giving up the most points in the league. And the only team that is even close to as many points given up this year is the Dallas Cowboys. Bengals have given up 253. Cowboys have given up 250. The next closest team is 30 points below that. 7 consecutive games given up 27 or more points. The only game in which they didn't was the game against the Cleveland Browns in week 1. Humbling. Sure, there's emotions you can feel, but everyone saw how bad this defense is, and even then, we couldn't even begin to comprehend how bad they play, how poorly they would play. So humbling, get out of here with humbling. We knew it was bad, dude. Embarrassing is the right word, and you don't want to say that at the podium, but it is embarrassing. Sometimes you do got to say that. And now we're talking about this defense, and last year was a historically bad defense, and here we are. You see the beat writers, the podcasters in this city talking about this defense, saying it's the worst in Cincinnati Bengals history, and they're probably right. This team has spent serious capital, draft capital, trying to replace this defense, because that's what good teams do. You sign the offensive players, you keep replenishing on the defense. The problem is that over the last 4 years of first 3-round picks on the defensive side of the ball, none of them are hits. The best you can say is DJ Turner, who's played well this year, but you'd think you'd have at least oh yeah, that dude's great. Cam Taylor-Britt, Joseph Asai, DJ Turner, Chris Jenkins, Miles Murphy, Shamar Stewart. It's all been Zachary Carter. Who is that? It's all been just a complete disaster on the defensive side of things. And the season isn't gone. Like, the season isn't done. You can look at this team and you can comprehend what we all see, which is this team isn't very good, but the season ain't done. Like, this doesn't derail an entire season. It's not that kind of a loss. It's just objectively embarrassing that we have the opposing quarterback who is getting bashed by the owner and former ambassador to the United Kingdom, what is his name? Woody Johnson, doing Mario jumps in the pocket and throwing the ball into the turf, and they put up 39 points. Blown 2 double-digit fourth-quarter leads, 5 in the game. And it's incredible to even consider. It's incredible to even behold, and I don't know where this defense goes from here. You feel like the only place to go is up. You feel like the only place to go is getting better from here. But what does that look like? And over the course of Zach Taylor's career, he's had a top half of the defense, I believe, once. Someone fact check me on that. In scoring, they've been a top 16 defense once, and it was the 2022 season. They weren't even that in the Super Bowl year. Like, the bar to be a good team in this National Football League with the offense that we have is so freaking low. It is so low. It doesn't take a world-class high jumper or a pole vaulter to get over that bar. We all can. Just a little bunny jump right over it. And this team is competent. But we're not getting that. In fact, we're getting the complete opposite. And before I continue to rant for a full hour here, Stone, I want to get in your opinion on just how embarrassingly the defense played and how embarrassing a loss this game is to you.
It's incredibly embarrassing. I think, following this team for as long as I can remember, this is the worst loss since 2015, the playoff game against Pittsburgh. I don't think there's a singular worse loss between then and now. Just kind of where you were at in the season, the expectations that you had, the positive momentum that you established last Thursday night. And it's incredibly embarrassing. And the problem is, like, where do you turn? Because, we talked about this kind of being a measuring stick for how bad this defense was going into this game. I think we all knew the defense wasn't good. The defense stunk, but there was some optimism that, okay, it's the Jets. Your defense should be able to keep you in the game against the Jets. And then that didn't happen. And now you're sitting here looking around going, well, we drafted all these guys. It's not like, even if you do great things in free agency this offseason, you're still going to have to roll with some of these guys. Like, literally every pick that you have made stinks on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, at all levels of the defense. I mean, the trenches. And, the moves that you made in free agency. Oh, you're sitting here scratching your head wondering why your defense is just as bad when all you did was bring back a couple of guys on the defense, and then TJ Slayton was your lone signing on the defensive side of the football. Oh, we're going to fire Lou Anarumo and bring in Al Golden, and that's going to solve all our issues. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Al Golden's incompetent, but he's dealt the same cards that Anarumo was, and it ain't working. Like, there's no talent on this defense. There's no quality players at all on this defense. So it's really hard to come up with a reason why this team is going to be competitive down the stretch. Like, they're going to have to roll with these guys. This is going to take a long time to fix. They're bad on the line. They don't provide any pressure. And then you got youth at your second level, and then you got missed tackles all over the place there. And your DBs aren't any good either. It's just you're left searching for answers, and I don't know how you can be optimistic about this unit, because even if you blow the whole thing up, defensively, what, are you going to start 11 rookies next year on the defensive side? You already got probably too many out there with 2 at your linebacker spot, and they're making too many mistakes as well. So it's just on the defensive side of the ball, this has been an issue for a few years now, and it seemingly has gotten worse. I sat here before this season started and said, good news, there's no way this defense can be worse this year than it was last year. Hand up accountability. I'm wrong. It's worse this year than last year, and that's really hard to believe.
Yeah, and it is a reoccurring problem. So I'll give you this stat. The New York Jets, the proud football organization that they are, have had 2 500-yard games in the last 7 years. Since 2018, they've had 2 500-plus yard games. Can you guess them? One was yesterday. Any guesses on the other one? Stone, when was it?
The Mike White game.
The Mike White game. 3 years ago with a backup quarterback against Zach Taylor and the defense. Lou Anarumo's defense. And it seems improbable, impossible even, that with the money that they've thrown at the defensive unit, with the draft capital that they've thrown at the defensive unit, that they can't hit on a single impact player. There's some marginally okay players on this defensive side that we've used draft picks for. DJ Turner, I named him. Kim Taylor-Britt looked good for the first couple years. Obviously, doesn't look very good anymore. Dax Hill's playing better. But the problem is like you're spending first and second round picks on these guys, or third round picks, to where those aren't marginal players. Those aren't supposed to be marginal players. Those are supposed to be impact players. Dudes that you center your defense around. And we got none of them. We've got 2, maybe 3 competent defensive players on the team. Trey Hendrickson, who's all pro. DJ Turner, who's playing great. And Dax Hill's playing better too. But the rest of them, God bless. It's going to take time for those rookie linebackers to play. They like Barrett Carter. They like Demetrius Knight. It's going to take time for them to get ready. But, man, it's pitiful to watch right now to where Barrett Carter's getting stiff-armed by Isaiah Davis, by the Jets' backup running back. I want to say this. I saw someone tweet this yesterday. Do you remember in the preseason when the defense looked what it looks like all year long? It looks putrid, hapless, whatever synonym you want to use. Open up that thesaurus and go to town describing this defense. In the preseason, Al Golden kept bringing the same sentiment home anytime they talk about, we're not showing a whole lot. We're not giving that many good looks. We're not showing a whole lot. Like almost like joking, jabbing at us, like, you guys are saying this defense looks bad. Wait till we open up. Wait till we open it up, baby. Wait till we get there. And now we're 8 games in, and they've given up 27.7 times. And here's the other thing. And this goes to now back to Zach Taylor, to where this team has played 8 games this year. And I get that most of it's been without Joe Burrow. But this team has played 8 games this year. And they have looked good. They have looked good. And this is, you could argue that they didn't even look good in this game. They have looked good one time, and that was last Thursday. To where you say, like, that's a decent football team. They've looked good one time. They've won 3 games somehow. Don't know how. A comeback against the Jags, a pitiful loss against the Browns, and 5 embarrassments and losses. They've looked good one time. We're halfway through the season. This team has shown us who they are. There's no secrets here. There's no like, maybe this can get. No, this team has shown us who they are. They are a really good offensive unit. We knew that going in. If you get a just competent quarterback back there, this offense can shine for 38 points. And there's something about the offense that late in the game, and we'll get to it. I have an opinion on the way that the game was taken care of in the final few drives, as a lot of people did. But it's a really good offense in a defense that is worse than you could even imagine. And it's hard to describe. It is truly hard to describe how a team gets to this point and how they get forward from here, how they move past this. Zach Taylor said, and me and Craig had a really good conversation about this last night in the post-game show. If you guys haven't, that video's up. Feel free to take a gander at that. Talking about Zach Taylor's comment. So we've already talked about the humbling comment. Zach Taylor made a comment last night where he said, someone on the defensive side, someone over there needs to step up. Someone over there needs to be a leader. And you take that and you go, yeah, of course. You benched one of the leaders, first off, Zach. Which, you mean, maybe they should have benched Logan Wilson anyways. Regardless. You benched one of the leaders over there. But the way that you say that makes it sound like the same comments that Jamar Chase. That's not my problem. That's a defensive side. Yeah, Zach calls the plays. Yeah, Zach's an offensive mind. But Zach's also the head coach of this team. To where he needs to lead this team. All units. That's what being a head coach is. They need to figure it out. No, you need to figure it out too. You don't get to sit back and go, that's their problem. And that's what that comment made it seem like. They need to figure it out over there. Jamar's comments are fine, right? Jamar, what he said, hey, I play offense. Because he does. That's what he does. But Zach, you're the head coach. You lead this team. Like, you are the overseer of this entire organization. You've had your fingers in these picks. I don't think it's someone overseeing. I don't think this is an ego situation where Howie Roseman just gets the guys in and Nick Sirianni doesn't have a whole lot to do with it. I think Zach Taylor has his fingers in on a lot with what this defense is or the players we are drafting. And we're seeing it's not good enough. And as I mentioned, we're not asking. The good enough isn't even good. We just need you to be mediocre. We need you to be the middle of the level. And even beyond that, I don't even want a top. I would give for a top 20 defense, let alone a top 16, 15, top 10 D. I just need someone to where if we give you two separate double-digit leads in the fourth quarter against the worst defense or the worst offense in the league, practically playing a guy that's getting embarrassed by the owner and without his two-star wide receivers, that you can get at least one stop for me. That's the defense. And Zach, that is your team. This is your bunch. This is you are overseeing this whole thing. And I'm not in their draft room. I'm not. But it's become abundantly clear that this team is so blind, deaf, whatever the lack of senses that you can use to describe to getting good defensive players in there. I give them credit. I mean, from 2019 to 2021, they hit on a lot of free agents. But it's embarrassing. And people will point to the Indianapolis Colts, Lou Anarumo, their defensive coordinator, and how he has turned that team into looking like maybe the best team in the AFC. We'll wait and see on that. And people go, well, we should have never got. I mean, it was pretty clear that we had to get rid of him because it was the easiest thing to do. When a defense plays like they did last year, you've got to make some significant changes. And if you're not going to make the change at head coach, then, okay, we'll get a different eye in there. I would have hoped that you take a little bit of a more ardent search for that defensive coordinator, not just hire the guy that you already knew you're going to take. 39 points to the New York Jets. It didn't even, and here's where it doesn't even take one stop in the fourth quarter. We stopped the Jets twice yesterday. 2 punts. 3 times. 2 punts and a turnover on downs on the opening drive of the game. It didn't even take one stop in the fourth quarter to win the game. You could have just stopped them from scoring a 2-point conversion one of the 2 times that they tried that. And this game is won. It's mind-numbing. Stone, let me ask you this. We had a brief talk, and I kind of wanted to save it for the show because sometimes you when you're in a pre-show meeting, you lay out all your opinions, and there's no surprise to when you get to the actual show. I didn't like Zach pointing to the defense and going, someone over there needs to step up. And we've seen coaches call out players before, but it's like the way it sounded to me was almost, that's not really my problem. That's the defensive side. My offense was cooking 38 points today, but he is the head coach. This is his problem. Am I off the mark when I put it a little too hard on Zach there for those comments.
I think just hearing the comments not only from Zach but everybody in that locker room, it was just exasperated, after the game. Like, they've done this song and dance so many different times, and this rears its ugly head once again, and is the reason why he lost the game. So I think that's just kind of desperation. Like, please, somebody do something, right? Somebody win a one-on-one on the defensive side. And when you go through 60 minutes of football against the worst team in the National Football League and nobody on your defense can win a one-on-one, whether you're rushing the passer or trying to get, lock somebody up and get a stop as a DB, or just tackle somebody when you're one-on-one in the hole, like, you didn't win any one-on-one matchups. And when you score 38 points on offense, it's not like you need to win all of these one-on-one matchups, just like a few. Somebody step up and make a play. So I don't have an issue with Zach saying that. But at the same time, I look at this, and I don't know if this is a leadership problem. It's just a lack of talent issue. Like, if you are letting the New York Jets, without Garrett Wilson and without Josh Reynolds, do that to your defense, like, it's a lot more than just lack of leadership. It's like you just don't have the dudes out there to get it done flat out. And I think that's kind of the situation that Cincinnati has right now. And there's just nobody that, especially with Trey Hendrickson out. Credit to him for trying to gut through it, but, the defense was substantially worse when he was out. We all sat there and speculated when he was playing last year at the 17.5 sacks and the Bengals defense was awful. We were like, my goodness, could they be even worse without Trey Hendrickson?
Yep.
Well, you've had no Trey Hendrickson here the past couple of weeks, and it's been somehow even worse. So somebody needs to step up. Nobody is going to come in here and save this defense. Unfortunately, after this loss, I think talking about the trade deadline, you're going to stand pat at the trade deadline now. Are you going to go all in and give up some more draft picks here at the deadline? I don't think so after you lost that game. So it's going to be more of the same as far as the guys that you're rolling out on the field. And somebody just needs to step up and make a play. And nobody throughout the course of that second half was able to do so on the defensive side of the ball. One play, one TFL, one quarterback hit. The Bengals, forget the sacks, they only had one quarterback hit in the game, and it was from a DB, Cam Taylor-Britt. Those guys on the defensive line were just a complete non-factor in the game. And somebody, and I think that's where you kind of got the exasperated comments from Zach Taylor and kind of the desperate comments of, just literally one guy step up and do something, and simply weren't able to have that one play.
Yeah, and that's every level of this defense isn't very good. Isn't very good. But if you watch enough football, you understand that if you have a good offensive line and you have a good defensive line, you'll win a lot of games. You'll win a lot of games. And it is so abundantly clear that while the Bengals defense is likely the worst in the league, no, it is the worst in the league, the defensive line might be the worst I've ever seen. They can't stop a hole. They can't plug a hole on the run. Breece Hall and the New York Jets just rushed for over 250 yards. And on top of that, they can't make Justin Fields, who throughout his entire career has shown us that if you put a little bit of pressure, you make him make a decision quick, he folds under the pressure. He folds underneath it. And time after time, they drop back Justin Fields, and he had 3.5 to 4 seconds. Not a single bit of pressure from Shamar Stewart or Joseph Asai or Miles Murphy or B.J. Hill or anyone on that defensive line. Not a single iota of pressure. To where guys like DJ Turner, who's having a good year, guys like Dax Hill, who's playing okay, guys who aren't playing so well, like Cam Taylor-Britt or Jordan Battle or Geno Stone or anybody in that secondary, they are helpless when they have to defend a guy for 4 seconds. You've got to make any quarterback, let alone a bad one like Justin Fields, make quick decisions. And if that is, we are going to have to start sending 6 guys all the time and just blitzing, which isn't Al Golden's cup of tea, I'm okay with that. But you cannot let them sit in that pocket for 3.5 to 4 seconds or longer like Aaron Rodgers had last week, 6 to 7 seconds. This defense cannot do anything if we're not getting home. And the only time we had pressure, as Stone said, was when we blitzed a cornerback. We blitzed Cam Taylor-Britt from the safety position. That was the only time that we've had any bit of pressure yesterday. Shamar Stewart and Miles Murphy might as well have not been out there. Might as well have been a 7-on-7 flag football game for that Jets offense. There wasn't penalties that put the Bengals in bad position. They simply gave up big run after big run and big pass after big pass, and they could not play with a lead. And that's the thing that is most unsettling about this whole thing, is when you constantly are putting pressure on an offense by scoring your own points, getting double-digit leads 5 different times. You have the ability to make an opposing offense one-dimensional. But the Bengals really never had that opportunity because the Jets were running the ball at will. They were down 2 scores in the fourth quarter multiple times, and they were still running the ball because they knew they could make big chunk plays out of it. They knew that they had the ability to break one off for 50 yards if they just stuck to the run game, to where we could never pin our ears back and get after the quarterback because we also had to be defending the run, and we weren't defending either at elementary level. It's impossible to believe. It's impossible to believe. And it has sang home the sentiments that I've thought about this team now for really since the second blowout loss. I gave them a pass on the Vikings game, and then I saw that Broncos game as, after that game, we're like, this team's a bottom team in the league. Maybe the worst team in the league. I don't think we're the worst team in the league. But I saw Jay Morrison, fellow Hamiltonian, does great work. He sent out a tweet yesterday about the spread of this coming game against the Chicago Bears, where we are 1.5-point underdogs at home against the Chicago Bears. And he was commenting on how he thought it was surprising that they were underdogs. And Jay watches this team more than we do, and I'm like, Jay, what are you missing here, man? Seriously, in what world would the Bengals be favored against the Chicago Bears? Like, are we collectively? Am I missing something about this team? This team. There will be power rankings tomorrow. And even if we would have won this game, there would be power rankings that would come out tomorrow that have the Cincinnati Bengals like the 22nd team in the league out of 32. And there would be people going like, we're not the 22nd. We're 4-4. We're a half game out of the AFC North. This team, it is not viable. It is not sustainable. It is not good enough to think that what this team is doing is going to be competing at the end of the year. And they probably will, to be honest with you. Like, we'll probably be in like week 14, week 15, and we'll be looking at this team, and there'll be some outside chance that we win these last 3 games and we get some help, that this team can sneak back into the postseason, and maybe Joe's back and all that stuff. But just remember this game as a reminder of even that if that exciting thing happens, and even if this team breaks off and wins a couple miraculous games against the Bills or the Ravens or the Patriots, who all look better, and the Ravens are favored to win the AFC North, which is a testament of how terrible this division is when they're 2-5. Maybe the Bengals wrap off a couple wins and you can fool yourself into thinking, but just remember what we've seen now for 7 weeks from this defense, which is 27-plus points. 39 points to the New York Jets. At home. With a guy that they didn't even want to start at quarterback. Without their 2 wide receiving options. It's laughable. It is absolutely laughable what this defense has shown this team. And the problem that is coming up in all of our brains is there's no solution. There's no we need to do this. We need to play the young guys. We need to blitz more. We need this guy to come back from health. We need this guy to step up in the locker room, as Zach Taylor said. There's no solution here. The good news is it seems like they can't possibly play worse. I mean, what good news? I can't imagine efforts worse than they did yesterday, worse than they played yesterday. That's the good news, but I've been surprised before. The bad news is there's nothing that you're looking at this team and go, all right, they just need to tweak this. They need to do this separately. They need to do this differently. And then all of a sudden this team turns from the worst Bengals defense in the history of the franchise to, all right, this defense can keep this offense in the game and win some games. This has been a constant battle. Another tweet I saw was that since 2022, there have been 9 losses. 9 losses from teams in the NFL where they have scored 38-plus points. 9. The Bengals are 1-3 when they score 38-plus points in that time period. A third of the losses coming from the Bengals, but 1-3 when scoring 38-plus points is unfathomable. It is unfathomable. Stone, I want to get into another talking point, which was the final play calls, those final 2 drives from the Cincinnati Bengals. But before I get there, are there any passing parts about this hapless defense? Because I don't see a way forward. Are there any more thoughts, or should we just dive right into the final few drives? Play call?
Dive right into the drive. I want to get your thoughts on this because we can sit here and talk all day about the defense, and we will, and we'll continue to do that throughout the rest of the show and the rest of the week as well, and really probably the rest of the season for the Cincinnati Bengals. And it's kind of lazy to sit here and put any blame on the offense considering what happened on the defensive side of the football, but they had the ball in their hands with all 3 timeouts, a potent offense, a team that was built around their offense, predicated upon their offense. All the financial allocations go towards their offense, and they had an opportunity to get in field goal range, and they weren't able to do it. I know you have some issues with how that transpired, and let's dive into that.
So, no, here's my opinion. I saw a few people talk about like their final points from yesterday's game, where talking about how Zach Taylor decides to run the ball in the final minute when they need a field goal to win, or blowing 30 seconds off the clock, which are fair complaints. But if you watch yesterday's game and the thing you want to complain about is the way that Zach Taylor called those final 2 drives, get the hell out of here. Like, I mean, that is so far. You know what? It's 12th on the list of things why the Bengals lost yesterday, and the first 11 are the 11 players on defense. So, like, yeah, they are critiques that, yeah, I'm sure Zach would want him back. But if your takeaways from yesterday's game are the way that they handled the final drive, that's hilarious. That being said, I will get into this. Bengals score with 10 minutes and 21 seconds to go up 38-24. Their defense then gives up a touchdown in 2 minutes. 10 minutes to play with a 14-point lead, and they give up a touchdown in 2 minutes. So we get the ball back with 7:52 to play in the fourth quarter, and what do? Joe Flacco, pass incomplete to Jamar Chase. Joe Flacco, pass incomplete short to Andre Yoshivas. Joe Flacco sacked for 6 yards. We drop back and pass the ball 3 times and take off 1 minute on the clock. And people will go, why weren't we running? Because at that time, we were running for about 7.5 yards per play. I've said my take on complaining with play calling many a times before, and I'll say it right here. I think that the laziest thing we do as fans is complain about play calling. The reason why is because they are arguments that you cannot lose. When you complain about play calling, you are either right because the play did not work, or you're wrong, but you're happy because the play did work. You put yourself in a win-win situation, And when you do that in discourse, it's not a fair stance to take. Yes, I'm sure Zach Taylor, looking back at it, would like to run the ball in that situation. But to be fair to Zach Taylor, two fronts. One, everything he had called up into that point did work. Everything the Bengals defense or Bengals offense had done through the first 53 minutes that led to 38 points had worked, and I thought Zach Taylor called a hell of a game up until that point. I thought he was nails. Some really unique plays, some really well-drawn-up plays, where the run game was firing on all cylinders, and this Jets defense is actually capable of stopping the run, and we are running at a very high level in the pass plays. So I think Zach was feeling himself, and rightfully so, because everything had worked up into that point. And the second thing, yeah, you can say you should run the ball to bleed the clock. But when your defense just gave up a touchdown in 2 minutes, you're probably thinking, all right, well, we've got to just keep laying it on them. We got to keep putting points up on that board. Because this defense, and rightfully so, wasn't going to stop them. So it does not offend me that we dropped back to pass 3 times in that situation. I wish that, obviously, it would have been better to run, but I do not care, because to that point, the play action, every pass play, like they were playing lights out offensively. So keep doing what you were doing. Keep churning out the offense. I do not care. Where I do have criticism is after the Jets go down and have a 9-play, 5-minute drive, and they score with 1:54 left in the game, and we need a field goal with all 3 timeouts. You need to go down and win the game. And this has been a criticism that Joe Burrow has taken over the years, is that when time and time again it feels like they need to go and win one, they just can't win one. And I always push back and go, well, he had a double-digit lead twice in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, maybe we did put pressure on, because I remember last year against the Ravens, a similar thing. We had 2 different double-digit leads against the Ravens, but in the final minute, you couldn't ice the game, couldn't win the game. Let me take you through. 3 timeouts, 2 minutes to play. Joe Flacco completes a pass to Jamar Chase for 7 yards. It's 2nd and 3. That play was taken at 1:48. The next play is ran 25 seconds later, and we hand the ball off to Chase Brown, which gets 12 yards. There was no sense of urgency. You had all 3 timeouts. I get that. But the next play wasn't ran until 48 seconds on the clock. You cannot take 35 seconds off the clock, especially when you're going to go incomplete pass, then a run up the gut that gets a yard. With 38 seconds on the clock, we ran the ball up the middle with Samaje Perine, which got a yard, and we had to burn one of our final timeouts. And then we threw 2 passes to Andre Yoshivas. Well, one was to Jamar Chase and one was to Andre Yoshivas. And neither are completed. The game is over. My only criticisms are, no, you don't need to run up to the line and run another play immediately, but you cannot take 35 seconds off the clock, even despite having 3 timeouts. There has to be more of a sense of urgency there. And second complaint isn't with the play call. It is to Andre Yoshivas, who, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's Joe Flacco. He can't catch Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco throws it too hard, the 40-year-old man, and is an NFL wide receiver and can't catch him. I don't know, but he's had more drops since Joe Flacco's taken over than he probably had in his career up until this point. And yes, each of those 2 passes that we threw to him on that drive were tough catches, but ones that I think we know that Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins make. He had a chance to get his hands on the balls both times, and he doesn't bring it in. And the other thing is, if they're going to, as they did, double team, which is a really smart decision by the New York Jets, they said, we're not going to let Jamar Chase or Tee Higgins beat us here. We're not going to allow their playmakers to beat us here. We're going to make one of their second-tier playmakers beat us. Who? That's Andre Yoshivas. That's what he gets paid for. This is what teams do in the red zone. This is why Andre Yoshivas scores a lot in the red zone. Is because teams bracket Jamar Chase, Tee Higgins, say, beat us with somebody else. And Yoshi, you got to get open. And Yoshi, you got to make the catch. You've got to be able to rein those in. And when you run the ball on that 2nd and 10, and you only get a yard, guess what? Now it's 3rd and long, and the Jets can bring a lot of pressure, which they did, which is why Joe Flacco had to throw away the 3rd and 9. But I do want to say, as I brought my points out to that, this is so minute on the reasons why the Bengals lost yesterday. Like, this has had, as I mentioned, it's 12th on the depth chart of reasons why the Bengals lost. And the first 11 are all on the defensive side. All right, so are those criticisms fair? About running the ball there on 2nd and 10 with 40 seconds, Yoshi needing to get open, and the fact that they wasted 35 seconds despite having all 3 timeouts in that final minute and a half.
Yeah, I think all that is fair. At the end of the day, they had an opportunity with the ball in their hand to go down and win it. They weren't able to execute enough on the offensive side in order to make that happen. You have all 3 timeouts, so you have some time, but I get it. That's probably too much time that went by. The run, you want to run on 1st down, fine. They ran earlier in the drive for, 11 yards. They were running the ball well all day for 7, 8 yards a carry almost, I think. So I don't have an issue with wanting to run the ball in that drive, but after the 1st down play doesn't work, and then it's 2nd and long, and then you run it, that doesn't work. All of a sudden, you got 2 plays, and it's the game. So, obviously if Zach could go back, I'm sure he would not run it. In that spot, it's one of those things, 2020, obviously. When you're looking back at things, it's very clear that what you should have done, what you shouldn't have done. And, it didn't work. So I think in hindsight, obviously, he wouldn't have ran it. But you had success running it throughout the duration of the game. So, I don't pick him apart necessarily for that. Yoshi, we all liked him last year. He kind of burst on the scene as the 6th-round guy. I was like, okay, this guy's reliable, red zone guy, 3rd down guy. This year hasn't been his year. You got to move off him. When you look at the snap count, he's out there way too much, and he is not productive whatsoever. It's kind of alarming to me that they haven't gone to Tinsley. Maybe Tinsley's not showing enough in practice, despite how good he was in the preseason. He's had some good moments in the regular season. Burton, obviously, not even given an opportunity to dress. So, they got to make a move off their wide receiver 3 here because Yoshi, we all liked him, but the production there simply isn't where it needs to be. This is where you miss Mike Gesicki a lot. That's kind of a perfect spot to go to Mike G there, and obviously he's not out there on the field. But, at the end of the day, you weren't able to get it done. And the question I want to ask you is this. There's a lot of people right now that are going to be calling for jobs, and we don't love doing that, but I think when you're in a situation like this and you lose to the worst team in the NFL, I think it's definitely warranted. Is there a guy that you blame more between Duke Tobin and Zach Taylor, and would you call for either of their jobs here at this point? Is it time to move on and go in a different direction?
Yesterday's loss, 39-38 to the New York Jets, is a fireable offense. It is. It is a fireable offense to everyone that is currently associated in the decision-making for the Cincinnati Bengals. Zach Taylor, on top of losing to the Jets, and I've defended you here because you seem like a great guy. You've won 5 playoff games, which before you took the job, this team had not won a playoff game in 30 years. And had won 5 playoff games in the history of the franchise. But yesterday was a fireable offense. And really this season, 8 games in, 5 of them being disasters, embarrassing. When the portion of your season is embarrassing, that falls on you as the head coach. When you have 3 wins and even 2 of the wins aren't good, that falls on you as the head coach. And Duke Tobin, he's been around here for 25 years. It's pretty clear it ain't working with him either. Because them 2 together have been unable to refill a roster that went to the Super Bowl in 2021 and went to the AFC Championship in 2022. They have been unable to bring in impact players that are good enough to get this team not back into the Super Bowl, but back into the postseason. They've been unable to get back into the postseason with elite MVP level play from quarterbacks, elite offensive player of the year, Hall of Fame worthy play from 2 wide receivers, from elite all-pro defensive player of the year level play from one guy, Trey Hendrickson. They have been unable to create game plans, create personnel, bring in the right guys to supplement those players to get back into the postseason. So yes, yesterday's game was hitting the top of the nail and driving it home that those are fireable offenses. To this current iteration of the Bengals is not, and will continue to not, get it done. We have suffered embarrassing losses in the Zach Taylor era. The entire first year, a lot of the second year, and we can give those passes because Joe Burrow wasn't here yet, right? Joe Burrow was hurt or wasn't here yet. But from the point that this became a competent franchise once again, and from the point that we realized Joe Burrow was an elite, there's been some embarrassing losses. There's been the Week 1 loss to the Patriots last year. There was the Week 4 loss to the Tennessee Titans a couple years ago where you get blown out. There's the loss to Cooper Rush. There's the loss to Mike White. There's the loss to the Browns in Week 1 a couple years ago. There's the Halloween massacre to the Cleveland Browns. There are embarrassing losses. There's the worst loss in franchise history to the Minnesota Vikings, which you followed up with a complete embarrassment on Monday Night Football against the Denver Broncos. And there is complete inept against 2 of the better teams in the NFC, the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. But this is the cherry on top. This is the end of the masterpiece for embarrassing losses. This was the worst loss of the Zach Taylor era, and maybe the worst loss in Cincinnati Bengals history. From where you thought this team was heading, from the hope and aspiration that Joe Flacco had breathed into this city, from playing the worst team in the league, an 0-7 team that looked completely inept from top to bottom, with Aaron Glenn, who was already talking about getting fired midseason, and Woody Johnson bashing Justin Fields, and they wouldn't have played Justin Fields for Tyrod Taylor, who's never shown to be a good quarterback in this league. That's how bad Justin Fields has played and how bad he's looked in practice, to without their star wide receiver and without their number 2 and without their highest paid defensive player. You lose at home 39-38. Yeah, it's a fireable offense, Stone. It is. Do you concur?
I do. Yeah, I do. I think, both Duke Tobin and Zach Taylor deserve a lot of criticism, a lot of blame. But at the end of the day, I mean, the talent isn't out there. Coaching can only go so far in sports and in this league. It's very important, obviously. I think in the NFL, coaching is more important than any other sport at any other level. But clearly, I mean, if you got guys out there defensively that can't slow down the mess that is the New York Jets, you've drafted the wrong guys. And unfortunately, Duke Tobin's hit some layups, right? Joe Burrow, easy pick, right? Tee Higgins, relatively easy pick, right? Jamar Chase fell into his lap there, easy pick. But when he's had to, make some difficult picks here over the course of the past few years, he has swung and he has missed. Now, he's been here for so long that, he's hit some good ones. But, I mean, here recently, it's just not even close. It's not even close. And, we're in a day and age right now where it's like, man, we really could use a prime Von Bell in the back end of this defense, not just from his play, but leadership, getting everybody organized defensively, right? Could use a prime Sam Hubbard. That certainly would be nice. Could use a DJ Reader, somebody that could stop the run. There's been several players that have come through here that have been, good draft picks, and unfortunately, recent memory hasn't given us any, and that's why you're looking at a team that's completely incompetent on the defensive side of the ball, and that's why it's so frustrating because there's no, silver lining to this. I mean, there's nobody that you can trust going forward, and you're going to have to, run some of these guys back. You can't cut them all, right? I mean, you can't totally revamp what you're doing in a draft where, by the way, now you're down a draft pick and, a free agency cycle. Like, I mean, some of these guys that are out there, hopefully there are a lot of new faces next year, but some of these guys are still going to be around. And, can year 2 Al Golden make a difference? I don't know, but from a personnel perspective, it's just not even close at this point.
Yeah, and I want to clarify something. I saw people in the chat saying, I think it was Haro said, that's the worst take I've ever heard, and people were talking about how there's worse losses. And I'm not talking from a perspective of how it made me feel. I'm not talking about because the 2015 loss will never be – the 2015 Steelers playoff loss will never be top. 2005 Steelers playoff loss, the AFC Championship game. Like, those losses, hurt you to your core and break apart your heart. Yesterday was just the most embarrassing loss I think I've ever seen. Because that team might not win another game, New York Jets. They might not win another game. And they might not score 39 points for the rest of the season. And we give up 39 points to that team with Justin Fields played terrible. He didn't play well. He's missing passes all over the place. But our defense was giving them layups, right? The worst basketball player in college can make layups if you leave the bucket wide open. It's just, it doesn't even, it's so embarrassing of a loss. And this is the final thing I'll say. It is so bad of a loss that it is hard to get emotionally worked up about it. Because it is such a disaster, such a disgrace, that it's not even worth your time, effort, or energy to get worked up about it. Because it's just not good. And it's not good enough. And any hope, any aspirations, I'm not done on this season. This team can still compete. The AFC North's bad. The favorite to win the AFC North is 2-5 right now, the Baltimore Ravens. And we play them twice. And we play the Steelers once. And we play 3 games at the end of the year that look like layups, even though what looks like a layup anymore. Because this was the easiest game we were going to play all season. This was the easiest game we were going to play all season. New York Jets at home. Unless we get Joe Burrow in those final games. And those games might be easier. But that's why I think this is the worst loss in the Zach Taylor era. Because it jars you to a point where it's hard to have opinions on. I'll leave with this, though. Things aren't all bad here in Cincinnati. FCC plays their rival tonight in the tournament, so shout out to FCC. Maybe we'll have someone on FCC later on this week. The UC Bearcats look like they might actually be playoff contenders in football, so we'll see what happens there. There is reasons to be optimistic in this city. And one thing that I will say, and I don't know how to craft this, and I really don't know how to craft this, but it did make me feel a little bit better. So obviously yesterday, there was an absolute tragedy that happened, and Nick Mangold from Southwest Ohio played for the Ohio State Buckeyes and played for the New York Jets, and is one of their will be a Hall of Famer if he isn't already for the New York Jets. He passed away at a very young age of 41, which is an absolute tragedy. And I was thinking about this yesterday. Once again, I don't know how to craft this. I don't know how this will come out, but I'll say it did make me happy that his family got that on the same day, right? Like I'm sure that if they are religious people, they'd see a little bit of God, or it felt like Nick had something to do with that. So rest in peace to Nick Mangold, and I reach out to his family, but it does make me feel a little bit better that happened to Jets fans and stuff like that. But here in Cincinnati, it's just miserable today. All right, Stone Shield Show coming up here at 11. I'll do Stone. Answer this question: how long will it take you to get after your show is done? How long will it take you to get uploaded with the podcast and the things that need to get done right away?
I mean, shoot. Should I speed it up a little bit today? Do we want to get it out as quickly as possible?
No.
Okay.
The thing I was gonna do was for our members. They've been asking for this for a long time. For the members here on, I was gonna get a little box lunch going around 12:30. So we're gonna do a members only stream at around 12:30. So for the members, we'll see you guys then. Stone Shield show coming up right now. See you guys.
Welcome into the Stone Shield Show. My name is Stone Shields here on a Monday, another week at the show, and obviously rough weekend for the Cincinnati Bengals. We talked about how great the victory was last Thursday night against the Pittsburgh Steelers and just how devastating it would be a week later if you found a way to lose this game to the New York Jets, and the Cincinnati Bengals found a way to lose 39-38. Look, you don't want to get carried away and say things like, oh, the sky's falling or this is it, right? But it's hard not to here at this point. I mean, that Jets team, seeing them up close and personal, I mean, they are clearly the worst team in the National Football League. And candidly, it's not very close either. And they had their way with the Cincinnati Bengals throughout the second half, of course, and just what you were able to do defensively or what you were not able to do defensively obviously hurt you pretty significantly in the ball game. So we're going to unpack everything about this 39-38 loss for Cincinnati. Where do you go from here as a Cincinnati Bengals team? We'll play the blame game. I think you have to, and I think just about everybody is subject to some blame here, and it starts at the top, certainly with the front office, ownership, Duke Tobin, Zach Taylor, and every single Bengal player that ran out there on the defensive side of the football. We'll spend a lot of time here on today's show unpacking it, and of course we'll go around the NFL a little bit, which was kind of a bad week in the NFL. Really no good games, I guess, besides this one. The Bengals and the Jets around college football there as well. Cincinnati, on some good news, the Bearcats pull up a big win at home at Nippert Stadium against the Baylor Bears, and they got a big one coming, and it's going to be late night, I believe 10:15 kick. Next week when they play Utah. So we'll spend some time talking about college football to end today's show. But just a complete nightmare for the Cincinnati Bengals as they lose this one 39-38. And defensive side of the football. Disgusting performance from Cincinnati. You can't execute at any level of your defense. From a pass rush perspective, it doesn't exist. Trey Hendrickson, he was able to go in the first half, wasn't able to do much. The hip, the back, whatever it is, caused him not to be able to go in the second half, and the defense certainly suffered because of it. Second level, you got rookies out there that are in over their heads at this point at the linebacker position with Demetrius Knight Jr. and Barrett Carter. Maybe they can turn things around, right? I mean, it's early in their careers. They've played a handful of games. Maybe they can be a linebacker duo going forward, but right now they need to be good, and they're not. And the back end, of course, is a massive issue as well with your safeties and your cornerback play. And really every single player on this defense deserves a lot of blame And we shouldn't be surprised, I think, is the main takeaway here that I have. You shouldn't be surprised if you're the Cincinnati Bengals and that this has been the product that you've put out on the field on the defensive side of the football. Why? Well, think about how bad you were last year. And what did you do to fix that here this year? You fired Lou Anarumo, a guy that he had proven could be a really good defensive coordinator in this league. And look, I'll be the first to say you needed to make a change. I was for firing Lou Anarumo because something needed to change at that point. But if you just switch who's coordinating the defense and leave the same cast of characters out there, I don't understand how you think it could get dramatically better. And somehow, some way, it managed to get worse. I sat here at Chatterbox Sports going into this year, and I was like, good news. There's no way the Cincinnati Bengals defense here in 2025 can be worse than what it was last year in 2024. And I was wrong. They somehow found out a way to be even worse this season for the Cincinnati Bengals. And they didn't make any adjustments. What did you do going into this year? You made the firing at your DC spot. You bring in Al Golden. And I'm not going to put this all on Al Golden. Maybe Al Golden can be a solid defensive coordinator in this league. But your one move was TJ Slaton. And everything else you ran back. We sat there and we scratched our head and we said, we're really bringing back B.J. Hill and Joseph Osai when they haven't really been able to prove much here in the city of Cincinnati, specifically with B.J. Hill the past year, the 2024 year. He had some good years prior to that when he came over in the trade from the Giants. But the last year in 2024 for B.J. Hill, no good whatsoever. And what has he done for this team at all this year? He's on a 3-year deal. He is a veteran guy. He has been around here for a long time at that defensive tackle position. And he can't stop the run, and he can't apply any pass rush on the opposing quarterback. B.J. Hill has been awful for you, and that looks like a horrible signing for Duke Tobin and company. Joseph Osai, you picked him in the middle rounds out of Texas. There was some upside there. All right, he battled injury earlier in his career, and he was able to get some sacks last year, and you decided, you know what, we'll let him stick around, and we'll give him a prove-it deal, a 1-year, $7.5 million prove-it deal. Well, he has proven that he can't play competent football for this football team. Shamar Stewart, you took a risky pick at the 17 overall position in the NFL draft, a pick that you had to hit. You could not afford to miss on that pick. Considering the state of your defense, that had to be somebody that you hit out of the park. And your decision was, we're going to take a guy that we can't really trust him. He's a raw talent. He hasn't done much at the collegiate level, but we believe in his high ceiling because of the traits that he has out there as an athlete. That form of thinking was not a form of thinking that you could have going into that draft pick. You needed a safe pick, somebody that could come in and be a can't-miss guy. Maybe he had not quite as high of a ceiling as Shamar Stewart. Fine. But you needed somebody to come here in 2025 and be ready to go and ready to produce for you right here, right now. I get he had the injuries, right? He missed a lot of games, but had opportunities here against Pittsburgh and this past game, of course, against the Jets, and he hasn't shown up whatsoever. And that makes 2 first-round picks here in recent memory that have not done a darn thing for you from a pass rush perspective. Those 2 picks alone are a fireable offense for Duke Tobin. And the other guy, of course, I'm referring to is Myles Murphy. We were holding on to hope. He showed some flashes maybe in the Minnesota game, but maybe that's just kind of wishful thinking and kind of spinning it in a positive light. But Myles Murphy, you can't bring him back. There's nothing you can do with Myles Murphy. You've tried it with different coordinators. You've given him several years. You've tried it when he's banged up. You've tried it when he's fully healthy. You've lined him up in different spots. He cannot play at the NFL level. And you picked him in the first round. Swing and a miss. Not ready to say Shamar Stewart flat out can't play at this point, but you needed him to come in and be competent right away. And he is not competent right now. In fact, he is a liability for you. Your run defense, one of the worst in the league, probably the worst. Then you bring in TJ Slaton to be your run stopper, and he can't do it. And he certainly can't apply any interior pressure on opposing quarterbacks. So to sit here and go, the defensive line, it's not good again this year, that shouldn't surprise anybody because you ran it back with the same unit. And all that happened was Trey Hendrickson got a little bit older, and now you're seeing him not be able to play as many snaps as he did last year. Now, I've got my issues with Trey Hendrickson. He doesn't seem like the best teammate in the world. There's a reason the Bengals didn't give him a long-term deal, and it's probably the right decision not to do so. But he's out there this year. He's a Cincinnati Bengal for this year, and what has he done? He has not been the same player that he once was. And without him, this defense is a heck of a lot worse. So that's the first level of your defense there, along your defensive line. Just not good NFL players at this point. And in this league, if you can't apply pass rush and you can't have a prayer at stopping the run, and this is the Jets we're talking about. That's why this was such a measuring stick game. We knew the defense was bad. Okay, but how bad is it? You should be able to keep the Jets under 25 points, right? I think that was a realistic expectation going into this game. No, you let them hang 40 on you. Oh, it was 39. They hung 40 on you for all intents and purposes. The New York Jets came into your stadium and hung 40 on you and scored 3 touchdowns on their final 3 possessions of the game to pick up a victory in the fourth quarter on the road for their first win of the NFL season here in 2025 with a head coach, by the way, that looks like he's over his skis, a team that has no belief in the guy that they rolled out there at the quarterback position. You saw it with their play calling throughout the duration of the entire first half. And they were able to come to life on your defense late in the ball game, and you couldn't do a darn thing about it. So the defensive line misses everywhere. And I don't know how that can get better quickly. Because in this league, you can get a little bit better along the margins in free agency. Like, oh, there's a splash move there. You bring this guy in. Or maybe 2 or 3 good signings there, and you spend some money, and you're a little bit aggressive, and you bring in these guys. But if you want to have success in this league, you have to be able to draft and develop. Now, Duke Tobin's been here so dang long that he's done that in the past. But here in recent memory, it has just been whiff after whiff after whiff after whiff along the entirety of the defense and the entirety of the offensive line. The only thing that he's done right in recent memory is take Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. And those were, you and I could have made those picks. That wasn't some genius move to take Joe Burrow first overall or some genius move to take Jamar as early as they took him. But beyond that, what can he really hang his hat on here at this point? Because coaching is very, very important in the NFL. Incredibly important, right? It's more important than being a manager on a Major League Baseball team, more important than being the head coach of an NBA basketball team. Coaching in the NFL is really, really important. But at the end of the day, you got to have players with some talent. And this Bengals defense lacks talent. And then you take it a step back. And we'll talk about the leadership aspect of this in a minute. You go to the second level of the defense. Okay, your linebackers. You're starting 2 rookies. Now, are they going to be bad for forever? Or are they going to be whiffs? It's too early to call them whiffs. But it was aggressive to go in there and say, yep, we're going to need 2 rookies to go out there and produce for us at our linebacker spots. It was aggressive. It was reckless. And to think that it was going to work out well was probably stupidity, to be completely honest with you. Demetrius Knight Jr., he takes bad angles. He struggles with tackling. Barrett Carter, he started the game strong, didn't end the game very strong. Missed tackles, bad angles, bad communication. So you got a defensive line that can't apply any pass rush, right, or stop the run. Now they're getting to the second level of the defense. It's like, okay, let's limit the explosives here. Let's make some tackles from our backers, and you can't do that either. Over 500 yards of total offense for this New York Jets football team. 254 yards on the ground. And by the way, Justin Fields, if there's one thing he's really good at, it's his elusiveness and his speed and his ability to run. He didn't even hurt you with his legs, really. I think he only had like 30 rushing yards. It was the other guys that really hurt you with their legs. And going into this game, if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, it was, we just need to stop the run or slow down the run. If we can slow down the run, we can win this football game. It was a Jets team that was depleted. They had no clue what was going on at quarterback. You know, if Tyrod Taylor was healthy to go, they probably would have went with him after their owner was banging on him. And Fields, of course, has played awful, right? But then it's like, well, shoot, now we got to go with Fields because Taylor's banged up. Oh, by the way, your best player, Garrett Wilson, he can't play. Reynolds, your wide receiver, too, he can't play either. You got Isaiah Williams out there, former Bengal. He's getting crucial catches there in the football game. Their one way that the Jets could win this game is if they just absolutely ran the you-know-what out of the football and did it very effectively. And it didn't start out that way, right? I'd be interested to know how many they had in the first quarter because it wasn't that much. But then the rest of the game, the running game started to open up more, and they started to make some explosive plays on the ground. 4 carries for 25 or more yards for the New York Jets. And you see some of these highlights, man. It just looks like, and James Rapine had a tweet out there, and I thought it summed it up perfectly. You see the kind of the pursuit from these guys and the missed tackles. Like, it looks like Breece Hall out there with a bunch of high schoolers trying to tackle him. Like, it doesn't look like they're on the same level playing in the same league, to be completely honest with you. And it results and lots of points at the end of the football game for the New York Jets. How many times did you have a 2-score lead here for the Cincinnati Bengals? I mean, you jumped out, right, early in the ball game, right? And you go down there and, you kick the field goal. But it's like, okay, we established some momentum there offensively, kind of picked up where we left off, right? You get the turnover on downs, not exactly sure what the Jets are doing there, right? Deep back in their own territory, their own 35, they're going to run a toss sweep play on 4th down because they don't trust their quarterback at all. One good play your defense made all game, and it was just kind of a idiotic play call from New York. Then you go down and score, you're up 10-0, and the vibe in the stadium is, this is going to be a blowout. We're going to, moonwalk to a victory here in Cincinnati. And we're going to be talking about coming back and winning this division. And we're thinking about the Packer game at night, knocking off the Pittsburgh Steelers, which, by the way, that was huge. Talked about that a little bit at the end of the show. But you had a 10-0 lead. And then you're able to force a field goal. It's all right. And look, you would like to see punts and turnovers from a defense. Again, the expectation for this defense wasn't high. So when they're sitting there kicking field goals, I'm like, fine, It's a little bit alarming. They're moving the ball this well, but, they're going to kick field goals. That's fine. So you're up 10-0. You were up 17-3. You were up 24-10. You were up 24-13. All right? You were up 31-16 there as well. And you were up 38-24 as well. I mean, all of those 2-score leads from the first quarter all the way to the fourth quarter. And next thing you know, the Jets got the ball down 6, ready to go take the lead. So we talked about the defensive line. We talked about the linebackers. What about the back end? Well, it was a team that couldn't cover very well last year. They couldn't tackle from their safety spot. What did you do this offseason? You ran it back with the same group. You said, yep, we'll get Lou Anarumo out of here and bring in a more inexperienced guy, college guy, to call the defense, and we're not going to switch the personnel up at all, and we think that's going to make this defense better. This shouldn't surprise anybody. And we were all holding on to some hope that Al Golden was going to be able to, wave a magic wand and do some great things defensively, and it looked better. And I'll be the first to admit, I thought Lou Anarumo was struggling last year. Some of the scheme stuff he was doing, I thought he was overcomplicating things a little bit. I thought he definitely deserved some blame for how the defense performed last year. But now he's sitting there in Indianapolis laughing with his 7-1 record, saying, oh, yeah, you fired me, brought in another guy, and then kept the same personnel out there. The personnel stinks. I mean, all the positions that we've said, the pass rush, of course, but the safety spot. How many times did we say, those safeties back there, it ain't it. Geno Stone continues to be awful, and they continue to play him for basically 100% of the snaps throughout a season. I mean, Geno Stone does not look like an NFL player out there. I think we're holding on to some hope that Jordan Battle can, be a solid player for you going forward, which, by the way, that's like when you look at this defense, it's like you're going to have to ride with Jordan Battle. I don't think there's so many guys that definitely can't play. A guy like Jordan Battle, I think he has to be a guy out there over the course of the next couple of years, to be honest with you. All right, and from a leadership standpoint, maybe he can, rise up and be that leader. Because who else can, right? Who else can at this point? But the safety room is horrible. Right, DJ Turner, he was on a heater, and then he didn't have his best game. I'm not going to say bang on him, right, say it was his fault. He had been sensational over the course of the past few weeks. But remember, this was a guy that was benched. This was a guy that was beat out in training camp. This was a guy that was a second-round pick, but for a while there, we were like, he looks like a bust. And then he kind of got hot over the past few weeks. He struggled. He's given up a completion from a running back throwing the football to take the lead in the ball game. All right, on a double pump, by the way. How often does that work? We got a running back rolling out, and he double pumps and then completes it for a touchdown. That only happens against the Cincinnati Bengals. Dax Hill. I've supported Dax Hill. I think he's had the injury last year, and they've asked him to do some things that aren't necessarily fair. He was a safety, and then they came in. Look, he's a nickel, right? He's an inside corner guy, and with kind of the injuries that they've had and just the lack of performance and the fact that he's one of their most talented guys on defense, they asked him to go, play outside corner, and clearly he struggled with that in this game as he gave up some big plays. So asking him to play that position, I don't think, puts him in the best position to be successful. He's more of a nickel inside corner guy. But at the end of the day, he wasn't good enough either. And maybe there's some belief in Josh Newton, but Cam Taylor-Britt, a guy that was a healthy scratch the week before, was playing over Josh Newton. So that tells you how the coaching staff feels about Josh Newton. Marco Wilson, of course, was out with an injury. But there's nobody on that defense that you sit there and say, oh, this can be a guy for us going forward, or this can be a leader. And that, of course, was something that people have discussed as well, is the leadership here with this team. Now, I think you got to be careful with that because can the leadership be better? Absolutely. Whenever you're in a spot as an organization like this with a 3-5 record and you just lost to the worst team, clearly leadership is not good enough for this team here at this point, but I think it's more of a personnel issue. I think it's more of a talent issue. But when you look about the captains on this team, it seems like they just kind of gave the captaincies to the oldest guys, right? I mean, Trey Hendrickson, his behavior this offseason, that wasn't very captain-like, right? Not at all. Pretty selfish, actually. Oh, we'll give him a C on his chest. Logan Wilson. We all like Logan Wilson. He gets benched and then requests a trade, and he's going to wear the C out on his chest when he goes out there? No leadership whatsoever for this team on the defensive side of the ball. And Jamar Chase, love him. Great player. Talked about how he needs to be a better leader. What did he say after the game, right? I mean, he's one of those guys. He kind of runs hot. He's very emotional. He's very competitive, uber competitive guy. In a lot of ways reminds me of Urban Meyer, like just cannot handle losing. And he was a guy that was, being a good leader and shouldering blame and being Mr. Optimism. But then the game ends, they lose, and he's like, well, I don't play defense. As somebody that with Joe Burrow out is looked at as the leader of this team, he can't be making comments like that. I understand he doesn't play defense. I understand it's not his fault that they lost the game. But as someone that's the leader of this team, you can't be saying that. You absolutely can't be saying that. So all levels of this defense, miss. Again, you are playing the New York Jets. If it wasn't going to work at 1 o'clock at home against the New York Jets when you've had all the positive momentum that you had coming off a mini bye, then it ain't ever going to work. And that's just the reality of the situation. And hearing Zach Taylor after the game, it was just kind of an exasperated Zach Taylor. I've never seen Zach like that at the podium when he's like, dude, like just somebody step up and get a stop. Literally one person. Somebody show up, get a TFL. Somebody apply some pressure on the quarterback, get a sack. Somebody create a turnover. Somebody, for the love of God, make a tackle. And nobody can even make a tackle. This is the worst tackling team in the National Football League. The angles they take are horrid. They're not physical. They're soft. I mean, they don't do anything right as a defense. And what makes this so frustrating is there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Even if you want to forget this year, which there's still plenty of games left to be played this year, and turn the page to 2026, as I mentioned at the top of the show, a lot of these guys are going to be back. You can't cut everybody, right? You have limited draft picks now after the Joe Flacco trade. What are you going to do? You're in a tough spot. A lot of these guys hopefully aren't playing for Cincinnati next year, but some of them are going to have to be. And we'll see if there's new leadership, if Duke Tobin ends up losing his job, if Zach Taylor ends up losing his job, if Al Golden ends up losing his job. And I think this is a fireable offense for lots of people. And I hate to come here on this platform and be that negative and call for people's jobs, right? Because I'm definitely not qualified to be doing that. And neither is anybody watching this, by the way, as well. But when stuff like this happens, people need to be held accountable. And this has happened too many times. And it's reared its ugly head too many times. This is the worst loss. I've been following this team my whole life. This is the worst loss that I can remember since the 2015 playoff loss when you had A.J. McCarron and Vontaze Burfict and whatever, the 18-17 loss to Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers. I think since that night in the playoffs in the wildcard round several years ago, a decade ago, this is the worst loss that this team has suffered. And as Reed pointed out on Off the Bench, this isn't just a one-off. Stuff like this, this might be the worst one, but stuff like this happens far too frequently for this organization. And the question, of course, becomes where do you go from here? Because you win this game if Joe Burrow's playing quarterback? Maybe, but the defense doesn't play any better if Joe Burrow's playing quarterback, right? There's a good chance that you could lose this game with Joe Burrow playing quarterback. And that should never happen against a winless team in the New York Jets. This is a Jets team that it would not surprise me at all if they did not win a singular game the rest of the way. Sometimes you have bad teams in this league where it's like, oh, they're not winning games, and they'll go on a run here, string a few together, and play for some pride and end up with 4 or 5 wins. I don't see that for the New York Jets. I don't see them winning another football game. They are that bad. And again, they were depleted there as well. And they were incompetent in the first half. And just seeing them on the sideline, they had no belief in what they were doing. And they had no belief in their quarterback either. Running a toss sweep play in the first quarter on their own 35-yard line on 4th and 3. You're running quarterback, and you're not even going to let him. The one thing that he's good at is running the ball, and you're going to take the ball out of his hands in that spot. Did Cincinnati get complacent in the ball game? I don't know. I mean, it seems like it, perhaps maybe a little bit. You know, I think as fans, the vibe in the stadium was, this is going to be great. The offense is going to pop off again, going to blow them out, going to be in a spot where we're home at night rooting for the Packers, hoping we're a half game back going into next week against the Chicago team that's reeling after they lost to Baltimore. Not the case, though, for Cincinnati, because now you're 2 games under 500. You're 3-5. You just lost to the Jets. And Sunday, make no mistake about it, becomes a must-win for this team against a Bears team that's coming off a loss and an embarrassing loss to Baltimore with Snoop Hundley playing quarterback, where that game really wasn't close at all whatsoever. All types of issues defensively. Again, this shouldn't shock anybody. This shouldn't surprise anybody. This was borderline an expectation for this team. You were holding on to hope that Al Golden was going to take him in the right direction and be a little bit better, but you somehow found out a way to be even worse. And all those players that took the field on the defensive side deserve a lot of blame, deserve a lot of criticism, but you got to go upstairs. Too many swings and misses. The talent just is not there. Is not there at all. And it's unfortunate because this has now been several years in the making. And I think part of it, and this is going to sound crazy to say, but the fact that Joe Burrow is hurt, you're kind of sitting there like, okay, well, you're kind of cooked anyway, as good as Flacco has looked, right? You're kind of cooked without Joe Burrow. But if you're in a spot here where Joe Burrow's healthy and playing well, like, you're still losing some of these games. And that's just, you know, people say all the time, like, oh, you're wasting Joe Burrow. Well, Joe Burrow's hurt right now, but if he was healthy right now, you would 100% be wasting him because this defense is not good enough, even if you're out there playing at an MVP level. Even if Joe Burrow was playing how he did last year, this defense is just not good enough, and it's just not close. Somebody needed to step up and make a play. And now, look, the defenses of years past when the Bengals were going to the Super Bowl and winning playoff games, they weren't world beaters, but you could rely on them. You could count on them. All right, where's that? There were so many guys that, were they great players? Were they Pro Bowl level players? No, but they knew what they were doing. They took accountability. There was leadership. When things went wrong, they owned it, and they were able to correct it going forward. Von Bell in his prime. Dang, I miss that guy. Along with, of course, Jesse Bates. Von Bell was a stable guy on the back end of that defense who was reliable, who could get guys lined up and could communicate, make big hits, tackle, right? Obviously, they tried it last year. He's old and washed. That's fine. But Von Bell in his prime, great player. Sam Hubbard, of course, the past couple of years, you know, he certainly kind of fell off a cliff a little bit as far as his performance goes out on the football field. But he was tremendous for a long time, a tremendous leader for this team, the backbone in a lot of ways of this defense there as well. DJ Reader, one of the worst decisions over the course of the past few years because you tried to, you know, fix it, replace him with Sheldon Rankins, and then you tried with TJ Slayton, and neither one of those guys have even come close to DJ Reader. How stable was he in the middle of your defensive line as a run stopper? And by the way, you chose Sheldon Rankins over DJ Reader. I believe Sheldon Rankins, you gave him more money than what Reader got in Detroit. Horrible decision there from the front office, as you haven't been able to do anything right along your defensive line. But guys like that, you don't have them anymore, right? Again, Von Bell, Sam Hubbard, DJ Reader, are those Hall of Famers? No. But they were solid players for you that you could count on and that were good leaders for your team there as well. And again, I don't think this is solely a leadership issue, right? Even if you had some great leaders there on defense, you're still not good enough. But the leadership thing factors into this as well. I mean, who out there did you think of as a leader? I mean, the one guy is Logan Wilson, and you benched him and he requested a trade. Beyond him, it's like, shoot, you got 2 rookies out there at linebacker. You got a defensive line where it's just miss after miss after miss in the draft. And then you got guys on your back end that can't cover and that can't tackle either. And you're looking around at your defense going, we drafted all these guys, or a lot of these guys for the most part, and they all are just not good. They're not good at all. We've tried them with Lou Anarumo. We've tried them now with Al Golden, and it just is not working. And there's a big reason to be concerned because this is something that is going to carry over several years now. I mean, you could pop off in the draft this coming year, but then in 26, you're still going to have too much youth out there. Right? I mean, this is something that's going to be an issue here for a couple of more years, and it has been an issue for several years now here at this point, and it is not close. It is not close, and that was the biggest concern. That's why this is such a nightmare situation, because how this defense performed against New York relatively healthy. I get your best players banged up and wasn't able to play in the second half. But if it wasn't even able to look mediocre, average, slightly below average against the Jets, it was going to be a massive issue. And you let the Jets go out there and look like an incredible offense with a team that has just struggled so bad this year. The Jets in London 2 weeks ago when they lost to the Broncos, which is probably the ugliest game of the NFL season to this point, -10 passing yards in the game. This is a completely dysfunctional team, a completely dysfunctional organization that's bad on defense, right? And you saw, we'll get to the offense here in a second. But they can't run the ball. They can't throw the ball. They don't have a quarterback. Their owner's banging on the quarterback. Their coach is over his skis. He doesn't know what he's doing. And they come into your home stadium and get a win when you're on a mini bye with momentum and the division kind of right there in front of you at that point. And they come in and beat you and overcome multiple 2-score defeats along the process there as well. Multiple. I mean, the offense, did they punt it a few times, and did they end with back-to-back punts or back-to-back, not score, not kicking a field goal, not scoring a touchdown? Yeah. But make no mistake, this is about the defense 100%. Let's talk a little bit about the offense. If Zach Taylor can hang his hat on one thing, it's that, well, his offense looks pretty good with a guy that's competent playing quarterback. The Bengals offense, again, looked good. Now, again, Jets defense, right? Bad defense, bad team. But, the expectation going into this game was scored definitely 30-plus, 35-plus, maybe a stretch. You went out there, scored 38. You did your job for the most part there on offense. Now, you can criticize the final couple of drives because you had opportunities to win the game on offense and weren't able to do it. Again, kind of reminds you of the Bengals last year. It's like, well, Joe Burrow went out there, he scored a bunch of points, but then they could have late in the game in the fourth quarter gone and scored more points to win it, weren't able to do it, and then the defense couldn't pick them up. Kind of the same spot here in this game. And for the record, it was devastating watching the Jets come back and take the lead, but the full expectation of me and everybody in that stadium was, okay, we're going to do what happened last week on Thursday night. We're going to get down there, McPherson range, an opportunity to win. And, you pick up the first down, you're moving the ball. Okay, great, here we go. And then that, after you move the chains there, you just can't execute. You got the incompletion. And then you run it on second down, which, again, if you're going to sit here and bang on, you can give Zach Taylor all the criticism you want for having these 2-score leads. He's the head coach, not the OC, and the fact that he blew this lead against that bad of a team, he deserves a lot of criticism for that. But if you want to complain about what he did there on the final drive, hindsight with his 2020, obviously he would have called some different plays, tried to have been a little bit better, but let's be very clear. That's not why you lost the game. But it's still worth discussing. The drive there at the end of the game. Look, you had success running the football all game. Again, against the Jets. I don't expect the Bengals run game to look this good going forward, but you ran it pretty well against the Steelers there as well, and that's back-to-back weeks you've been able to run the football. Perine, we said, with this offensive line, hey, it's going to be more 50-50 with him and Chase Brown. That's exactly what it has been here at this point, and it should continue to be that way going forward. Perine was great, 9 carries, 94 yards. But you averaged 7.9 yards per carry. My biggest issue was running it on second down, right? If you want to run it again on first down, remember, pick up the first down, it was an 11-yard run from Chase Brown. So on that final drive, you still had some success running the ball. So they said, you know what, we'll try it again here on second down after the first down incompletion, and that obviously didn't work. And then you're in a spot where it's like, well, there's less than a minute left, you're running the ball, you're not in field goal range, what are you doing? I get that. Bad call to run the football in that spot. But if it goes for 9 yards, again, it's not a bad call, right? But based on the result that happened, it is a bad call to run the football there in that situation. People freaking out about the time. I would have liked to see a little bit more urgency, but in the NFL, when you got 3 timeouts, the clock really isn't that much of a factor, right? You can wind that thing down. You hit a completion, pop off a timeout. People were a little bit worried about the clock. I would have seen him like to, go with a little bit more sense of urgency just because I think you can kind of apply some pressure there on the defense, get the Jets on their heels. It's a bad defense. They're probably like, oh, shoot, here we go. We're going to give up a game-winning field goal. And then you kind of let them collect their bearings and thoughts a little bit there. So that's why I didn't like how slow they went. But the people that say, oh, they went too slow, they were running out of time, they had 3 timeouts. That was not the issue there at that point. But then you go to Yoshi a couple of times and he can't execute. And got to give Aaron Glenn credit for that, right? Because he sat there and said, nope, T, Jamar, they're not beating us here. Beat us with, Noah Fant or, Yoshi or one of your backs or whatever, or Joe Flacco running the ball. That was how they were going to lose. They weren't going to lose against T and Jamar. And, those guys weren't able to make plays. He had his hands. It was an opportunity to make the catch. Am I going to sit there and call it a drop? I don't know, but it's just kind of been the same story with Yoshi over the course of these past few weeks, right? Where it's like, dude, you're not bringing in these catches, and you're going out there and you're playing all these snaps. I mean, the snap percentage that he's out there offensively is drastic, and he's just not doing anything out there. And, look, we've liked Yoshi for a couple of years now. Last year, he was great. Red zone, third down guy. He was reliable. I don't know if it's an issue with Browning and Flacco not being like Burrow, which obviously they're not, but he can't catch the football. I don't know if he has the yips. Again, this is a sixth-round guy, right? The Bengals would love their third-round guy to be out there, but he can't even dress because I guess he's just that incompetent. Of course, I'm talking about Jermaine Burton here at this point. Again, to us as fans, it seems obvious, like, yo, where's Tinsley? Get him in there for Yoshi. I don't know if Tinsley's not showing enough in practice to get more snaps or if they're just kind of holding on to hope that Yoshi's going to show what he did last year here this year. But clearly, several games now, the sample size is piling up a little bit, and he doesn't have it this year, and he frankly doesn't have it when Joe Burrow is not out there. And I think you got to go in a different direction there because he's just not getting open, and when he's having an opportunity to make plays, for the most part, he's not making them. The one on Thursday night, of course, was incredible. Won the game, in my opinion. But beyond that, it's just been too much incompetence from Yoshi. I would like to see a change there at that spot. And then one more thing that I will say about the offense, and this is my biggest gripe. Again, Zach called a great game offensively. It was a bad defense. They scored 38 points. That should be enough to win. I get you ended with, 2 non-scores with the punt and the turnover on downs. That's frustrating. I understand. But my biggest problem on offense, Tee Higgins is a phenomenal football player, and you're paying him a lot of money. 1 catch, 2 targets. Can't happen. And they went 19 times to Jamar. Great. I'd be throwing it to him a lot too. But you have to, and I was sitting there watching. Tee Higgins was one-on-one for much of the game. Late, they bracketed him, doubled both of them, fine. But he was one-on-one for much of the game, and they weren't even looking his way. And the one time they went to him, oh yeah, it worked. 44-yard touchdown for Tee Higgins. That cannot happen. That absolutely cannot happen. Especially when you're in a spot where it's like you don't got many good players. You got 2 on offense with Burrow out, 2 really good ones on offense with Burrow out, and if you're not even going to use the one, can't happen. Absolutely can't happen. Tee Higgins is a phenomenal football player, and if you go to him one-on-one, he is going to win way more times than he does not, and particularly those last couple of drives. Like, they had some opportunities there where it's like, oh, there's a couple punts here. Again, to sit here and criticize the team in the NFL for scoring 38 points seems ridiculous, and it is, frankly, a little bit ridiculous. But Ted Karras after the game said, well, we didn't score 40. Wasn't enough. Didn't score 40, and it was not enough. Now, of course, the question becomes, I said earlier in the show, it's fireable offense. I don't like sitting here on this platform calling for people's jobs, right? I sit here and I talk about sports. I am not, in my opinion, qualified to be doing that. But this cannot continue to happen. For me, I tend to give Duke Tobin more blame than Zach Taylor, but Zach Taylor does not escape this, right? He's not the OC. He's not just the play caller. He is the head coach. And he made the decision to fire Lou Anarumo and bring in Al Golden. And I don't know if he thought Golden was going to be able to wave that magic wand and help the defense, but clearly that has not happened. And Taylor deserves credit for what he's been able to do offensively, but again, he's the head coach. And now it's really, when you look at Zach's resume, it's like, yeah, you got the playoff wins. Yeah, that's really good. But you've got some really bad losses in there as well. And unfortunately in this league, when you have these bad losses, the first person that is looked at is the head coach. And we'll see if they opt to make a change. I would let it ride out the rest of the season and then make an evaluation. And there's people out there that say that's ridiculous. But again, you win this game. Let's say you go down and kick that field goal, you're sitting there saying the Bengals are back, right? Literally back. Even if I get the Jets were winless, but trust me, I mean, the narrative this morning, if you go down there and kick a game-winning field goal, despite how bad your defense was, I mean, the narrative is not even close to what we're talking about right now. We're talking about the sky falling here in Cincinnati, and we'd be talking about the playoffs if you're able to orchestrate a game-winning drive and give yourself an opportunity to kick a field goal. So Zach deserves a lot of criticism, and I think it's a decision that needs to be thought about, as we progress. And we'll see how his team responds. I liked what I saw from Taylor post-game in the emotion that he showed and how he was ticked off. Sometimes people get mad because Zach goes up there and he's like, "Oh, yep, we're gonna get this thing right. We're gonna be better. We're gonna build off this. We're gonna figure it out. I promise we're gonna figure it out." There was some frustration there from Zach post game, and I think that was real. I think that was genuine. I think that was honest, and I think that's what people needed to hear. Now I get people are gonna pick apart what he said. He said it was a humbling loss. People didn't like that. Yeah, it's not a humbling loss. It's just an awful loss. It's an unacceptable loss. It's a loss that can't happen. But to me, I'm looking a step above that, and I'm looking at Duke Tobin. I'm saying, dude, you've been here for a long time. You've drafted some good players in the past, but you do not have a feel for what you are doing right now. And even after the coordinator switch, that shows you even more. Like, there's some people out there, "Oh, it's Lou. He's running too much of a complex scheme. It's a little bit too complicated. We need to move off Lou. We got these younger guys." Moved off Lou, and it's even worse. You're not going to bring in you could bring in Bill Belichick to run your defense. It ain't going to be better with the guys that you have out there from a personnel perspective. I think you need a new brain, a new voice in that room when you're making the personnel decisions. I think you got to move on. You got to get some, up-and-coming guy that's, on the staff of Howie Roseman or Les Snead or, a John Lynch, one of those guys in a successful organization, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Philadelphia. Get one of those up-and-coming executives, football guy, knows what he's doing, and roll the dice with him to come in here and fix this, because I don't think Duke Tobin is capable of fixing this. And you just go down the list, and it's just miss after miss after miss after miss, and that can't happen in this league. That absolutely can't happen in this league. And from an ownership perspective, let's not do this, director of player personnel, de facto GM. No, go out there and hire a general manager to run this operation. Now, is it going to be, a popular job from an up-and-coming guy to come in here and do it, considering the state of Cincinnati, and, especially if he's not coming in with, his own head coach and he's coming in with Zach? It's not going to be necessarily a super popular gig, but there's only 32 of these things, and there's a bunch of young and up-and-coming executives in this league, and if one opens up, I'm sure somebody that is more than qualified would like to take it. But it's just, you thought it was coaching. Well, we got a new coach calling the shots there on defense, and it's worse, right? So I don't think it's a coaching thing on defense. Do you need a culture switch and, get rid of Zach? That's an argument that you can make, and fine. Right? I don't think doing it now would do you any good, right? I think that's a situation that needs to be evaluated at the end of the year. But I don't know if you can go into another draft in April with Duke Tobin based on what he has done the past few years, because it doesn't look close. Doesn't look close whatsoever, and that is my biggest takeaway when you're talking about all this. And we knew this going in. If you lose to the Jets, it's going to get as ugly as we've ever seen it around here. And that's the situation you find yourself in. 39 points, basically a 40-burger that you let Justin Fields and a bunch of backups put on you. And we'll see going forward. Now, that was a lot of negativity there for 45 minutes, and I think rightfully so. That's just kind of the reality of the situation here. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, going into the Pittsburgh game, we said got to go 2-1. That was what I said. I said got to go 2-1 going into the bye in order to have a chance. Well, I don't think many people expected to win the Pittsburgh game, and I know many people didn't expect to lose the Jets game, but you're still 1-1, and the 2-1 thing is still ahead of you. Sunday is absolutely a must-win. You have to beat Chicago at home. You have to respond in a big way, and they're going to be hungry, by the way, coming in, losing to the Baltimore Ravens. Caleb Williams, things look like a bit of a mess there offensively for him. So maybe you can find something there on the defensive side, but you can't let Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson come in here and hang 40 on you. And going into this game against the Jets, the Bengals had the better staff, coaching staff. And we talked about that throughout last week. There's not many times as a Cincinnati Bengals team where you're going to roll into the game and have the coaching advantage. They had one this week against the Jets, still lost. I got news for you. They don't have one against the Bears next week. Because Ben Johnson, the creativity that he has, make no mistake, he is a good head coach, and he is a great play caller. Right now his quarterback is holding him back in Caleb Williams. But he's going to put Williams in positions to be successful. And it seems like it's just every time you play the Bengals, it's a get-right game for your offense. regardless of who you are in the NFL. You're struggling offensively, that's fine. Come here, play Cincinnati, and that'll clean things up for you. So we'll see. Must-win game. Must-win game on Sunday. We talk about, the must-win. You shouldn't say must-win. Must-win. Can't lose. Season's done if you lose on Sunday. You absolutely have to beat the Bears going into the bye. Maybe you catch a break. We'll see what happens around the rest of the division. Huge, by the way, that Pittsburgh lost to Green Bay. I know many people after the Bengals game, it's like, I don't even really want to deal with football, watch football here at this point. But losing, the Pittsburgh Steelers losing to the Green Bay Packers, that is very, very significant. Very, very significant. And we'll see if they can continue to get some help around the rest of the division. Positive, your offense can keep you in every game. Unfortunately, I don't know if your defense can win you any games going forward with as bad as it was against the lowly New York Jets at home, depleted. Tough scene. We'll see if anybody steps up. Nobody, and I alluded to this earlier in the show, where the deadline sits now, you win against the Jets and then you win against the Bears, and you go 3-0 kind of going into that bye. Then you can talk about, making a move. Maybe you bring in an edge guy or a defensive tackle or a safety, right? I don't think you can do that here at this point. Losing to the Jets, you can't afford to give up more draft capital because clearly you need to hit on some picks in 2026 or this thing is just going to continue to be really, really bad on the defensive side of the football. Let's go around the rest of the NFL here before we get out of here on today's show. Kind of a lackluster week in the NFL. Really not many good games at all. I think the Bengals game, was that the only one-score game across the duration of the league? Yeah, it looks like that is the case. We won't spend time talking about Vikings-Chargers. We did that at the end of last week. The Dolphins, Tua was sick. His eye was like all swollen, so that was interesting. But I don't know if McDaniel saved his job. But that's a good Falcon defense. They went in there, hung 34. They win that game 34-10. Penix was out, had a bone bruise in his knee. Cousins was in. Good thing the Bengals didn't trade for Kirk Cousins, right? That guy is completely immobile, and he didn't offer much there in that game. But a big-time win for the Dolphins as they maybe keep their jobs there in Miami. I don't know. We'll see. Ravens, everyone thought that Lamar was going to be able to go last second. He can't go. And it's a 30-16 victory. I thought Snoop Hundley should have been their guy as their backup. Throughout the whole year, they went with Cooper Rush. I never understand that. I think the backup quarterback should resemble your starter in some ways as far as their performance on the field and their play style. Cooper Rush and Lamar Jackson, that's two opposite sides of the spectrum there. And that was a disaster while Rush was orchestrating that offense. Felt like it was only a matter of time before Harbaugh got the win. Big win for Baltimore. They're right behind you now in the AFC North. And those two games against Baltimore are going to be huge. And the Bears coming in next week off a loss. And, the Bears had kind of been getting lucky. They had strung together some wins, but they hadn't looked very good in the process. And they finally, showed their true colors, I feel like, in that game against Baltimore. But they're going to be hungry coming in next week. Must-win game for Cincinnati. Panthers had found a way to win a few games. They didn't have their starting quarterback. The Bills, was Allen spectacular? No, but he didn't need to. 40-9, not a competitive game there at all. The Bills, they've struggled a little bit. They haven't been, they lost to New England, but New England looks like they're a really good football team. And they lost to Atlanta there as well, which is a bit of a head-scratcher. But the Bills are going to be a threat here as we progress, and they're going to be an issue the rest of the way. They pick up a win 40-9. Texans-Niners, there's always those one or two games where you look at the spread and you look about where people are betting, and you go, something doesn't add up there. It was weird to see the Texans 2.5-point favorites. And 85% of the public money was on the Niners. Usually when that's the case, you take the other team, and Vegas was right. Says 26-15, Texans beat the Niners there in that game. Patriots are for real. Browns are a mess. If you want some solace as a Bengals fan, at least we're not the Cleveland Browns, right? Because the Cleveland Browns have been more of a mess than the Bengals, and they've been doing it for even longer. At least that's the positive note here today. At least the Bengals are not the Cleveland Browns. At least you don't live in Cleveland. You live in Cincinnati as they get smacked by the Patriots. Patriots are threats to win the Super Bowl. Call me crazy, but that's just the truth. Eagles have put together back-to-back really good performances there offensively. Responded great. The criticism, the Eagles, somebody needs to get fired. Patello, he doesn't know what they're doing as their OC. Hurts, he's got limitations. No, they were just fine as they beat the Giants 38-20. Unfortunate Cam Scatterbo, significant injury. He's probably going to be out for the year, and hate to see that. But Dart, I like what I saw. They only scored 20 points, but he's clearly a franchise guy to me. Eagles still a Super Bowl threat. Saints are horrible. Again, At least the Bengals aren't the Saints. That's a team that's worse. Only 3 points against a Buccaneer team that's depleted and banged up. Tampa Bay picks up a win on the road, 23-3. Colts are the real deal. Hard to believe. Lou Anarumo, he's crushing. I get he was going against Cam Ward and Mike McCoy and the Titans again. At least the Bengals aren't the Titans, right? There's another team that the Bengals are better than. That's certainly positive. Colts win 38-14. They're going to be a threat here. Shane Steichen, Daniel Jones, who would have thought? But here we are. That's a good defense. They got good skill guys. Taylor running the ball better than anybody in the league. Big time win for them, 38-14. Broncos smacked the Dallas Cowboys 44-24. Broncos are a really good team, but their offense and their quarterback had held them back. Bo Nix played well in the game, obviously, 44 points. One of our best bets of the weekend. By the way, if you're new to the show, best bets of the weekend, we do it every Friday, our final segment of the week. Good week, 4-2 this week as we are inching closer to 500 on the year and hopefully can go on a bit of a run here. Needed that, 4-2 on the best bets. Broncos cover -3.5 there in that game as, look, if Bo Nix can play and that offense can play, they're going to be a threat the rest of the way. Packers, huge win, 35-25. Jordan Love, maybe his best game of his career. He was sensational in the game. That Pittsburgh defense is bad, right? Bengals defense is horrible, but hey, that Steelers defense, again, there was some positivity here to end the show. The Bengals aren't paying guys on their defense like Pittsburgh is, and Pittsburgh's defense seems to be not quite as bad, but still pretty bad there in the process. So maybe that's something to hang your hat on there, that Pittsburgh defense is really bad. They're going to come back down to life here. They're only a 9-10 win team. So, if you can go get hot and get on the run, which with this Bengals defense doesn't seem possible, but Steelers are going to come down to life a little bit and give you an opportunity there in that division. Commanders, Chiefs tonight. Chiefs heavy favorites. Jaden Daniels out in the game there as well. By the way, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already here at the show. Off the bench back this week. We were bumped up at our show from 10 to 11 last week. Reed Mouse is back. We're excited about that, obviously. So off the bench 10 to 11 this week, and then our show 11 to 12 after that. Really excited with where the show was going here. We started here on September 8th. And doing it now for over a month and a half here, and I think we've picked up some positive momentum there as well. So that's every day, weekdays, Monday through Friday. Podcasts will go up wherever you get your podcasts, iHeart, Spotify, Apple, you name it. You can find our podcast and Off the Bench. Clips go up on YouTube throughout the rest of the day there as well. And you can see the segments on YouTube and obviously on social media there as well. Give Chatterbox Sports a follow on Twitter, and also myself at StoneShields_ on Twitter there as well. Over 20,000 subscribers. That's something we've been chasing for a couple of weeks now here at the channel, and pretty awesome that we've been able to get here, as a company over the course of the past few years. Nick Kirby, Trace Fowler, the whole team, they've done a tremendous job, starting this thing, and then I was able to come in here, in August and join the team, and it's been incredible. And sky's the limit now at this point, as we've got high expectations for where we can take this thing. But 20,000 subscribers, certainly a significant milestone, and we love that, and it wouldn't be possible without each and every one of you. So appreciate all the support on your guys' end. Couple of more minutes here. Real quickly, just want to bring up some of the things that transpired on Saturday at the collegiate level. UC Bearcats, since dropping that first game to Nebraska, all they have done is win. That Baylor game, I said last week, we had Hudson Klauke come on from Chatterbox Bearcats. We'll talk more Bearcats throughout the duration of this week there as well. But to me, I understand Baylor was 4-3 coming in this game, but that's kind of an experienced team. Baylor seemingly always kind of a threat. They always can beat good teams, have that ability, have a good quarterback, and that was a prove-it game for me for Cincinnati. And they went out there and they did their job as they proved that game. Defense looked better than I thought they would against that Baylor Bear offense. And now you got a game here against Utah coming up. It's going to be a late game. 10:15 kick, I believe, which I'll definitely be staying up for that. That's going to be awesome on Saturday. And look, the Big 12, man, it's wide open, and there's a real chance that Cincinnati could win this conference. There's a real chance they could get to the college football playoff. And there's some positivity there as it relates to Cincinnati sports. How about the Bearcats holding it down? Scott Satterfield, who would have thought? That's a huge win for them this past weekend against Baylor. Some big games coming up. BYU, they were able to stay hot, pick up a win against Iowa State as underdogs. BYU, they get off to these slow starts, and then they just, boom, they take off. Bear Bachmeier, their true freshman quarterback, he's been sensational for them to this point in the year. Are they the real deal? I don't know. They seem borderline fraudulent. They've got some tough games on their schedule. I think you clearly have to say they're the best team in the Big 12 right now, even though I think Texas Tech, despite the loss to Arizona State, is still going to be very much a factor here as we work our way down the stretch. But UC, of course, has a matchup with BYU on the horizon. That's going to be awesome. So some huge games coming up. Ohio State, idle, best team in the country. They don't really play anybody till the Michigan game. I expect them to continue winning in dominant fashion, but they did not play this past week. Indiana absolutely smacks UCLA at home 56-6. Look, Indiana's the real deal. They are the real deal. They absolutely can win the national title. And, look, they're good on the trenches. That's what, I think last year they were didn't necessarily have the size to hang in there with an Ohio State or a Michigan or, Penn State last year, those big-time Big Ten schools. But they absolutely can do that this year. And they can hang in there with Ohio State. Not predicting they would beat them. They can hang in there with Alabama. They can hang in there with Georgia. They can hang in there with A&M. So this is a real team. And they got Mendoza playing at a high level. They're running the football. They're stopping the run defensively. I think this day in college football, you got to have a top offense and you got to have a top defense, right? It's not like, you can have this great offense and win or this great defense and win. Got to be complementary ball. Got a top 5 offense, top 5 defense. Great head coach, moving with a lot of confidence. Indiana's the real deal. Huge win against UCLA. They had won their past 3 games with Neuheisel. Great story, right? I kind of fell victim to that a little bit. I thought they'd be a little bit more competitive in the game. Weren't able to do that. But I think, Tim Skipper and Jerry Neuheisel there at UCLA, maybe they kind of get they lose the interim tag and they get an opportunity to keep this thing going into next year. I would be happy to see that. But they got to continue to win some games here down the stretch. That game was not competitive whatsoever, 56-6. Brian Kelly. Kind of in all the Bengals news, kind of buried that a little bit. Brian Kelly gets fired. So now we have the Florida head coaching job open, the Penn State one open. Now the LSU one is open as well. Those are 3 massive job openings there in college football. Who knows? Maybe Florida State becomes open as well. We'll have our Brian Kelly replacements video segment later in the week. I know there's some people in Cincinnati that are probably smiling or chuckling a little bit about that. Hand up. I thought LSU, that was my national title pick. No, they're a mess as they got smacked by A&M. And A&M, that's a good football team, top 5 football team, no doubt about that. Game of the weekend, Alabama, South Carolina. South Carolina, the year that they're having to this point, they had high expectations coming in with Sellers and Beamer, and they kind of felt like a dark horse in the SEC. They've dropped some games. They've struggled to stay healthy, but there was no doubt that this was going to be a competitive game in South Carolina. Their crowd over the past few weeks hasn't really been there, but then the Crimson Tide come to town, and boom, that place sells out, and that environment was absolutely rocking. Look, Ty Simpson, in order for Alabama to be a real threat in this thing, Ty Simpson has to play at an elite level. And he's done that apart from the Florida State game and every single game leading up to the South Carolina game. And he didn't have it flat out for 3 quarters. Defense was able to hang in there, keep him in the game, which I think was huge for Alabama. But Ty Simpson flipped it on in the 4th quarter. They were able to get some stops. The forced fumble from Deontay Lawson late. And, all the students were gathered around the field as they were getting ready to rush the field. And then you get the touchdown, the 2-point conversion. And then, you get the fumble, the strip. And then you go score another touchdown and win the game. So, Alabama, I think you need, in order to be a really good team, you got to, have some adversity that you face and maybe grab a victory from the jaws of defeat, right? And that's basically what Alabama did in that game. They are absolutely a threat here going down the stretch. Simpson was fantastic in the 4th quarter after, really, he was getting hit a lot and he was missing on some easy stuff that he doesn't miss on. His best route is the dig route over the middle, and he had Jeremy Bernard, which would have been a touchdown. He missed. He hasn't missed that ball all year long, but was able to respond. Got to give Kalen DeBoer a lot of credit. He did a tremendous job for Alabama in that game. They have a bye before they face LSU, and that matchup kind of has lost a little bit of its luster now with LSU dropping some games and obviously firing their head coach in the process. Ole Miss, big-time win against Oklahoma. We talked about it with Mateer. He was a Heisman frontrunner for a while. Then he had the hand injury, same injury that Curtis Rourke had, the Indiana starter last year. Rourke was able to come back and then just never looked the same, right? And you're kind of feeling that with Mateer a little bit, unfortunately. He's banged up. That defense is really good, but offensively not able to score enough points. And Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin deserves a lot of credit, for what they were able to do. Obviously a heartbreaking loss game that they basically had won against Georgia, but they were able to respond in a big-time way, pick up a big-time win on the road. Ole Miss, very much a national title threat there as well. The big question with them is, will their head coach be sticking around, or is he taking a look at that Florida job or that Penn State job or now that LSU job here at this point? So, it kind of felt like to me that he would leave for Florida, but now if you're LSU, you got to be interested in Lane Kiffin there as well. So it will be very interesting to see if Kiffin stays at Ole Miss or not. Missouri, Vanderbilt going into the weekend, that was supposed to be kind of the game of the day. And, it was kind of a low-scoring game, obviously 17-10. Not a lot of fireworks there. Bo Perbula, the quarterback for Missouri, he suffered a serious injury in that game. Certainly hate to see that. But Diego Pavia, he can take you off. He can rub you the wrong way. He's old. You don't have to like him. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a fan, but he's a good college football quarterback. He wills his team to victory, and he's got – the culture of Vandy football is Diego Pavia, and he's done a tremendous job willing his team. Did it again in this game. Vandy's a threat. I'm not going to say a national title threat, but they're clearly a top 10 team in the country here at this point. That's another big-time win for them. And lastly, Texas. They were down and out, 31-17 late in that game. They were able to come back against Mississippi State. There were rumors about Sark, wanting to go to the NFL, and then he had to go out there, and his agents had to make a statement like, yo, that is ridiculous. That's not happening. We're fully focused on what's going on here at Texas. Been a complete letdown for Texas this year, and they should have lost that game, make no mistake. And if Mississippi State was a little bit more competent, they would have lost that football game. But now it's like, they only have the 2 losses. If they can, run the table here, they have a chance at getting in. They don't look like a playoff team by any stretch. Arch got hurt at the end. We'll see if he can go. Look like clearly a concussion. We'll see if he's available for their next game. But lucky win for them. They did make a lot of plays, though, in the fourth quarter, and they deserve some credit. But that Mississippi State team is not very good at all, and they were able to pick up a victory against them. That's kind of around college football here at this point, and I wanted to touch on some of those games there as well. But obviously, it's a Bengals-centric show here on a Monday after a loss like that. And lots of things that need to be fixed for the Cincinnati Bengals football team defensively. And we'll see if they can do it, because I don't know if there's going to be many personnel changes that you can make here at this point. I think you just got to find ways to roll the same guys out there, and hopefully they can play a little bit better. These linebackers, they need to grow up, and they need to grow up fast because they need to be playing a lot better at that spot for Cincinnati. But that will do it for this edition of the Stone Shield Show. Appreciate everybody hanging out. Had great viewership here for the course of Off the Bench, and then our show after it as well. We'll be here throughout the duration of the week. We'll have some guests on the show, working on getting some beat writers that cover the Bengals on the show, talking to them, and that certainly could be very exciting there as well. And looking forward to the rest of the week there here at the show. Appreciate everyone, as always, for hanging out, and we'll see. Reed mentioned member-only content if we're doing box lunch here. We'll get with Reed here in a little bit and see if that is happening, so stay tuned for that. But until tomorrow, take care, everybody.